Quiet, direct eye contact. For 6 months, he made her feel like the only person in the world. The messages started before she woke up. The phone calls lasted until she fell asleep. The compliments never stopped. The attention never faded. The certainty never cracked. He said he had never met anyone like her. He said they were meant to find each other. He said he knew her better than anyone ever could. And the strangest part, everything he said felt true. Years later, when she finally understood what had happened, she realized the biggest warning sign had not been the manipulation. It had been how perfect it felt. Because dark psychology has a name for relationships that begin with overwhelming intensity: love bombing. And what happened next would force her to confront a wound that had existed long before she ever met him. Before she met Daniel, Emma spent most of her life feeling invisible. Not abused, not neglected, invisible. Her parents were hardworking people. They loved her, but love was rarely expressed directly. Praise was earned. Affection was practical. Validation was conditional. As a child, she learned something many children learn. If I become useful enough, successful enough, good enough, someone will finally choose me. She carried that belief into adulthood. Not consciously. Most childhood wounds do not survive as thoughts. They survive as emotional instincts. And those instincts become magnets. They attract certain people, and certain people know exactly how to use them. Daniel appeared suddenly, and he appeared intensely. Within days, he was texting constantly. Within weeks, he was talking about the future. Within months, he was describing a life they would build together. To Emma, it felt like certainty. To dark psychology, it looked different. Love bombing is not simply excessive affection. Healthy people can be enthusiastic. Healthy people can fall in love quickly. The difference is function. Love bombing uses intensity to create attachment before trust has been earned. Daniel learned everything about Emma: her fears, her dreams, her insecurities, her childhood loneliness. Then he reflected those things back to her, perfectly. Every conversation seemed magical. Every coincidence felt destined. Every vulnerability was met with immediate understanding. She thought she had found someone who truly saw her. What she had actually found was someone studying her emotional blueprint. The damage did not begin when Daniel changed. The damage began when Emma believed she had finally been chosen. That distinction matters, because when the love bombing ended, she was not losing a boyfriend. She was losing a fantasy that had existed since childhood. The messages became less frequent. The attention became inconsistent. The certainty disappeared. And suddenly, Emma found herself working for affection she used to receive freely. She became more accommodating, more understanding, more patient, more forgiving. Not because she was weak, because she was terrified. Terrified of returning to the emotional place she had escaped. The place where she felt unseen, unchosen, replaceable. That is what makes love bombing so powerful. It does not create a wound, it activates one. Every canceled plan felt like childhood rejection. Every cold conversation felt like emotional abandonment. Every withdrawal of affection reopened something much older than the relationship itself. And because the original wound was invisible, she kept blaming herself. Maybe I asked for too much. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I'm difficult. Maybe I changed. Months became years, and little by little, she stopped trusting her own perception. The woman who entered the relationship confident and hopeful became someone constantly searching for evidence that she was still loved. That is the hidden cost, not heartbreak, identity erosion. The loss of your ability to believe what you feel, the loss of your confidence in your own reality, the loss of the version of yourself that existed before someone taught you to question your worth. And by the time the relationship finally ended, Emma believed she had lost the most important person in her life. She had no idea she was about to find the most important person she had abandoned, herself. Steady, hopeful recovery was not dramatic. It was repetitive. Therapy, boundaries, silence, reflection, distance. For the first time, Emma stopped asking why Daniel had done what he did and started asking why it had worked. That question changed everything because the answer led her backward, toward childhood, toward attachment, toward the belief that love had to be earned. Slowly, she rebuilt her life, not around validation, around self-respect. The need to be chosen became less powerful because she was finally choosing herself. Years passed, and eventually Daniel became a memory, or so she thought. Then one day, Daniel came back. Not with flowers, not with grand apologies, not with dramatic declarations. He came back with a problem. The relationships after Emma had not lasted. The same pattern kept repeating. Intense beginnings, rapid attachment, emotional instability, distance, collapse. Dark psychology calls this structural confirmation. The pattern eventually reveals itself. What appears successful in the short term often destroys itself in the long term. Daniel had spent years creating attachment, but never building trust. And eventually, he discovered something difficult. People can be captured through intensity. They stay through consistency. For the first time, he was speaking to someone who no longer needed his approval. Emma listened, politely, calmly, without anger, without revenge, without bitterness. Then she said no. No reconciliation, no reopening old doors, no return. The reckoning was not punishment. It was irrelevance. The emotional leverage that once controlled her no longer existed. And for someone whose power depended on being needed, that was the mirror. The most dangerous manipulation is not the one that hurts you. It is the one that feels like healing. Love bombing works because it imitates emotional safety. It feels like recognition. It feels like destiny. It feels like home. But genuine intimacy grows gradually. It does not arrive fully formed. Intensity is not proof of love. Consistency is. And often the people most vulnerable to love bombing are not naive. They are wounded. The child who spent years trying to earn love often becomes the adult most likely to mistake overwhelming attention for genuine connection. The lesson is not to become cynical. The lesson is to understand your wounds, because once you understand them, they stop choosing your relationships for you. I thought losing him was the tragedy. The tragedy was how completely I had lost myself trying to keep him. If part of this story felt familiar, share your experience in the comments. Not the betrayal, the warning sign you missed. Because sometimes the detail that changes someone else's life is the detail you almost ignored in your own. Next week, a daughter spent 20 years trying to become the child her mother wanted. The betrayal was subtle. The consequence arrived decades later, and neither of them saw the reckoning coming.